This week, you will be reading A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. This is one of my favorite short stories because of its kind of twisted storyline, as well as Faulkner's interesting perspective on Southern life during this time period. He really has a way of focusing on specific characters and developing them quite well in such a short selection, as well as really connecting his characters to the small town atmosphere of which they live. One of the main literary elements that you will find in this selection is conflict. There's a lot of conflict between the characters. So I would like to take today's direct instruction to review conflict in literature and look at some various examples. We need to first remember that conflict is a struggle between any type of opposing forces. It is what drives narrative writing. A conflict achieves resolution when the struggle ends and the outcome is revealed. So without conflict, we really don't have a plot that moves along. We need conflict in order to create a good story. There are two types of conflict, internal and external. All types of conflict all examples of conflict can be put into one of those categories. We're going to look at each of these types of conflict individually. Internal conflict is also called man versus himself. It's a struggle that takes place in the character's mind. The character is dealing with his or her own mixed feelings or emotions. An example would be deciding between right and wrong. You're really upset at your friend because she shared secrets about you. Do you confront her about it? Or do you embarrass her and share her secrets? Deciding which way to go in that situation is an example of internal conflict or man versus himself. External conflict is a struggle between a character and an outside force. It takes two forms, either man versus man, where we have two characters struggling with each other, or man versus nature. And this is where man is struggling with anything outside of himself that is not another character. An example would be a physical confrontation or a battle between two ideas. Man versus man is fairly simple. We have two people who get into a fight. We have a war, like we saw in the Red Badge of Courage. We have the North versus the South. Obviously, the actual battle was man versus man. Man versus nature or man versus the environment, you could say, is any time where man or a character is being affected by something that he doesn't have any control over. So we could say the weather, elements, other animals. Those kinds of things would elicit a man versus nature external conflict. That's really all there is for conflict. It's not very difficult. Hopefully this was mostly a review for you, but you are going to have to answer some questions that are related to conflict for your other activities this week. What I would like you to do now is to look at each of the items below on this last slide. There are 9 of them. Decide whether each one shows internal or external conflict first. So you would label each one as either internal or external. Then decide which subcategory of conflict is being described and label them as either man versus himself, man versus man, or man versus nature. So each number should have 2 answers beside it, either internal or external, or man versus himself, man versus man, or man versus nature. Please make sure that you answer these 9 questions in the submission box for this assignment. And as always, if you have any questions about this assignment or any other assignments, please feel free to contact me. Thank you, and have a good week.